Alright, how's everybody doing today? I'm back again with another video for you guys. And today what I have for everyone is my versus / comparison video between the Moto E4 and the LG G6. And real quick before I get started, it was such a gorgeous day out today, and this is so beautiful, I decided to film outdoors. So this is actually all being recorded outdoors using the 21 megapixel camera on the Moto X2 edition. So please, you guys, let me know how the audio sounds and let me know how the video looks. And again, since we're outdoors, I'm not responsible for any other ambient noises y'all may hear. So cars may go by, people may be out jogging, you may be hearing people listening to music, cutting their grass. So I do want to apologize for that. But it was so beautiful out today, I decided I had to get this video done outdoors. So just want to throw out that quick disclaimer. So that being said, let's jump straight into this. First off, what I want to talk about with you guys is the build quality and the overall designs on both devices. Now, this is very different aspects from each of these companies. Where Motorola is concerned, they went with the simple, sleek, functionalist / utilitarian-like design. So you have your plastic back shell and your display up front here with all of your sensors, your 8 megapixel camera, your 5 megapixel camera on the front, your 5-inch 720p display, and this guy has a user removable and replaceable 2800 milliamp hour battery. But that aside, I have to say the overall build quality and design on the Moto E4 is quite nice. There's no rattling or creaking of any kind, even with the removable back shell. All the buttons are very clicky and have a very nice tactile feedback to them. Even right here on the power button, it has little ridges so you could differentiate. So it's nice. So overall, I have to say that the build quality and design on the Moto E4 is really, really good. Jumping over to the G6, we have a more flagship approach here. What we have is our glass and metal. We have glass on the front, glass on the back, and then we have metal around the sides. And then you can see, again, when it comes to the build quality and design on the LG G6 here, LG did a great job. There's no rattling or creaking of any kind, and the device just feels really, really solid in the hands. There's no jaggy edges. Everything just seems to flow. It has a nice weight to it. All the buttons are very tactile and give you a nice reassuring feedback to it. Everything on here is really, really good. So that being said, you guys are probably wondering, from a build quality and design standpoint, who wins? And in my opinion, I have to call it a tie. It really does come down to personal preference. Maybe you're a functionalist, utilitarian type of person. You just want something that you're going to pick up and not have to worry about. Then I would say go for the Moto E4. But then again, maybe you like flashy devices. You want something that looks and feels beautiful in the hands and definitely going to turn some heads when people see it. Then I would have to say go with the LG G6. But that being said, in my opinion, I'm going to have to call this a tie. Both Motorola and LG did a great job when it came to the overall build quality and design on both of these devices. Again, it really just comes down to personal preference. Now, let's keep it moving. Up next, I just want to talk about the displays on these guys. And let's start off with the G6 here. Now, up front, dead center here, you have a 5.7-inch quad HD display with a resolution of 2880 by 1440p, and it has a very unique aspect ratio at the 18 by 9. So what does that mean? That means you get that 2 perfect squares aspect ratio when you're doing stuff, when you're multitasking, doing dual window, things like that, you're going to be able to fit 2 perfect squares on this guy here. Other than that, if you guys want to see the specs, there is. So again, it's a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, and it has a screen density of 564. But taking the numbers out of the equation, I have to tell you guys, from a day-to-day standpoint, using the LG G6 has been a joy. Everything has been very crisp and clear, and using it outdoors in direct sunlight has been a joy. Now I actually have it cranked up a little bit higher than I normally would because we're outside in the shade and the screen wasn't popping as good as I would like, so it's cranked up a little higher. But generally, when I'm using this outside in day-to-day usage, I keep it at about 61%, and when I'm indoors, I keep it at about 31%. But outside with day-to-day usage or just usage in general, it's been a joy, and I've had no issues with the display. No issues whatsoever. It's a really, really good display that LG has on this guy. Now, jumping over to the Moto E4 here. Let me turn that display off. This device right here, the Moto E4, has a 5-inch IPS LCD display, a 720p display, and again, using this guy outdoors on day-to-day usage has been a joy as well, and I feel like this 5-inch display is very one-hand friendly. But for those of you who want to see the stats, pull it up right here so you can see, it says it right there, it's a 5-inch IPS LCD display, and it has a screen density of 294. But putting all the numbers aside, guys, again, in day-to-day usage, it has been a joy. And really, if we weren't in the shade here and I need the screen a little bit brighter, I usually keep this guy at about 25% when I'm in the house and about 30% when I'm out the house. So that's just a testament to how easy it is to use outside and day-to-day usage. But that being said, again, with day-to-day usage, no matter what I'm doing, I've had no issues with the display, and the display is actually a joy to use. Alright, so that being said, you guys are probably wondering which display won. And again, in my opinion, I'd have to call this a tie. Again, it comes down to personal preference. Maybe you want a bigger display, maybe you want to fit more on the screen, or maybe you just want something smaller, something more one-hand friendly. Both of these displays would not let you down. And you know, well, some people may say, well, the resolution on the G6 is better, the pixel density on the E4 is lower, and yes. But y'all know me, at the end of the day, throwing all the numbers out the door, a good display is a good display, and it doesn't really matter whether it's Quad HD, Full HD, regular HD, 480p. If it's a good display, I'm going to tell you it's a good display. And both of these devices right here have a really good display. So regardless of which one you pick up, you shouldn't have any problems. Hence why I say it's a tie. So let's keep it moving. Now up next, I just want to talk about the hardware and software in both of these devices. So let's start off with the Moto E4 here. Now, hardware-wise, this guy is running 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage with microSD card expansion that you can turn into adaptable storage, which means you can use your microSD card as internal storage on this guy. Other hardware includes it's running a Snapdragon 427 quad-core processor and Adreno 308 GPU. Okay, it has a 2800 user removable, user replaceable 2800 milliamp hour battery on it. On the rear here, it has an 8 megapixel camera with LED flash, and that camera can record videos up to 1080p at 30 frames a second. It can do 720p at 30 frames a second and 480p at 30 frames a second. Side note, the cameras, whether it be either camera, the cameras on this guy offer Pro Mode in either the rear firing 8 megapixel camera here or the front firing 5 megapixel camera. Now, jumping around, we have a 5-inch 720p display. As I've already mentioned, we have a 5 megapixel camera on the front with LED flash, and the 5 megapixel camera can shoot all the features that the rear megapixel camera can do. So it can do 1080p at 30 frames, 720p at 30 frames, and 480p at 30 frames. Okay, and it does have a Pro mode built in as well. Other things, we have our front-facing speaker here, which also doubles as our earpiece up top, and y'all will get a demo of that in a little bit. And down on the bottom, we have our fingerprint sensor, which is capacitive. And I gotta tell you guys, the fingerprint sensor on this guy is really, really good. Okay, now jumping into the software on this guy, we're running pretty much a stock build of Android 7.1.1 Nougat. And I gotta tell you guys, aside from the occasional app slowdown, when you have a ton of apps open in the background, this guy has been a joy to use. And as you can see, Motorola, now owned by Lenovo, pretty much did not touch the software at all. It's pretty much a stock build of Android 7.0 Nougat. All Motorola really did was throw in some custom features here. So really, when I say custom features, again, this is the Moto E line, so you don't have all of your custom features like you would on the G series, you know, or the Moto X, but you still have some useful features here. So you could double press to launch the camera. Alright, and that one pretty much works from any screen. And then you have your Moto Actions. So you got a gesture to shrink the screen, and then you have one button nav. So you turn on one button nav, and you swipe left to go back, you swipe right to go to recent apps, you tap to go home, you tap again to turn the screen off, okay? Alright, and you tap and hold to activate Google Now. So it really is a very smooth and seamless approach, and I really like what Moto did with the software here, because the software as a whole is pretty much unmolested. All they pretty much did was throw in some nice useful features. So, and also, if you want to save some screen real estate, you can use that one button nav. But if you like the on-screen buttons, you could do that as well. So other than that, it's been a very smooth and fluid experience, as I've said, and I've run into pretty much no issues with this guy. And other than the occasional app slowdown with a bunch of apps open in the background. All in all, I have to say the hardware and software on the Moto E4 is really, really good. And I've had no issues whatsoever. Now, jumping over to the hardware and software on the LG G6. Hardware-wise, we are running 4 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of internal storage with microSD card expansion. There is a downside though. With that microSD card expansion, you can't use your microSD card as internal storage, so it's not adaptable. You can, however, do it so it's portable storage, so you can swap in and out microSD cards, save your photos and videos on it, and some apps, not all. Other things include, on the rear here, we have 2 dual 13 megapixel cameras. The one primary sensor is a 13 megapixel sensor, more of your average view, and then the other sensor is a wide angle sensor, so you could do those wide angle shots. Both cameras are capable of recording 4K videos at 30 frames, 1080p 60 videos, 1080p 30, 720p 60, 720p 30, and 480p video recording, as well as slow motion at 720p at 120 frames. Okay? And you do have your Pro Mode feature in the camera for just the rear facing cameras. It doesn't work on the front. Alright? Other hardware includes, you have your rear firing rear firing. Your rear mounted fingerprint sensor, which is capacitive. This also doubles as your power button. Again, internally we have a Snapdragon 821. I think it's an octa-core processor, and we have an Adreno 530 GPU. Okay. Other hardware up front, as I've said, we have a 5.7-inch quad HD display. We have a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, which can only record videos at 1080p at 30 frames and 720p at 30 frames. And again, you do not get the ability to use Pro Mode on your front-firing camera here, and we do not have front-facing flash. Okay, now moving on. When we talk about the software in this guy, again, the LG G6 is running Android 7.0 Nougat, so it's not the latest version of Android, but it's good to see that we are running Android 7.0 Nougat here. Let me pull it up for you guys, software info, so you can see it right there, 7.0 Nougat. So it's not 7.1.1 like the Moto E, but it's good to see that they are running pretty much the latest 7.0 Nougat. And again, putting all the other stuff aside, because you do have a bunch of features with the LG G6. You got a bunch of camera software features, you got a bunch of themes in this guy, and you can see that this implementation on top of Android 7.0 is about as far away from stock as you can get. But putting all that stuff aside, when we talk about using the software in day-to-day usage with that 4 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of onboard storage, it's been a very fluid and smooth experience, and I have yet to run into any app crashes, any app hiccups, or anything of that nature, even with tons of apps open in the background. Okay? It's just going to run fluidly and very fast, and it's going to be a joy to use. And I know some of you guys may be saying, well, then, it's not up to date. It doesn't have the latest processor, it doesn't have the latest this or that. But still, in terms of your everyday, your modern day flagship, in my opinion, you can easily call this a modern day flagship. It runs very fluidly. It has pretty much everything you need in a flagship: 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage, microSD card expansion. It also has a 3300 milliamp hour battery in it, and it has wireless charging, waterproofing, and quick charge 3.0. So pretty much a modern day flagship right here. And again, in terms of the software and day-to-day usage, it has been a very enjoyable experience. So that pretty much does it for the hardware and the software on both of these devices. And you guys are probably wondering which one is better. Again, I'd have to call it a tie. And here's why. It's a tie because the Moto E4 is running a stock build of Android with Motorola's custom features thrown in. So it's a very smooth and seamless experience across the board. That being said, although the G6 is running a more skinned version of Android, it does seem to be that much more fluid across the board. So where the E4 gets points for running a more stock-like experience, the G6 gets more points for running a more fluid experience. So they kind of cancel each other out, and that's why, at least in my opinion, it's a tie. Now, moving on, next thing I want to talk about is the Wi-Fi in these guys, and pretty much it's a tie across the board again. Now, internally, the E4 is supposed to have the lesser Wi-Fi module, but across the board, they pretty much perform the same. So across the board, they both have Wi-Fi 802.11 BGNN. In the G6, it has BGNN and AC dual band Wi-Fi. But the E4 doesn't have dual band, but it can take advantage of the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band. This is why, again, I say when it comes to Wi-Fi, it's a tie, because they can both take advantage of the same Wi-Fi networks at the fastest possible speeds wherever you have a router that can take advantage of those speeds. So, and then keep in mind, if you want to hear more about the day-to-day stats with me using these guys, please check out the full reviews, which will be linked down below in the video description. But from day-to-day usage, I would have to say it's been a joy with either device, and I've had no issues with either device. But now I know you guys want to see a real-time sample, so we're going to go ahead and pull up a video here, and this video will also double as your speaker test. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Let's see if there's an ad here. Let me let that ad play. At Olive Garden. Come in for a fan favorite like. Okay, skip through that pause. And as y'all can see, this is no copyrighted music here. All links to this music will be down in the video description as well. Bass Rebels provides some of the best non-copyrighted music on the web today. So please check them out. If you're a YouTube content creator like myself, you can easily find some non-copyrighted music that you can use in your videos. So check that out. So we got this video pulled up here. Let me pull that down. Okay. Pull it up on the E4 here. Alright. See. Make sure they're the same. Max out the volumes. 100% over here. And make sure we got 100% over here as well. Alright. Take it back to the video. Oops. Clicking buttons now. Don't be clicking buttons. Alright. And let's start off with the LG G6. So you guys enjoy. The volume's maxed out. I'm going to scrub through the video a little bit so y'all can see how the Wi-Fi performs and also how the speakers perform. And we're going to come back and talk about it a little bit. So here we go. LG G6, 100% volume. Enjoy, guys. Okay, so now let's go to the Moto E4. Same thing, 100% volume. Enjoy, guys. Okay, so real quick Wi-Fi test, real quick speaker test for you guys. Now, again, in terms of Wi-Fi, in terms of daily usage, I would have to say it's a tie across the board. Didn't have any issues with the Wi-Fi at all, whether it be in daily usage or running my Wi-Fi speed test or any test that I ran dealing with the Wi-Fi across the board. I have to say it's an enjoyable experience on either device. Now, that being said, in terms of the built-in speakers in these guys, I would have to say, in terms of clarity, it's a tie. Both these speakers get very crisp and clear throughout with no distortion at all, at least in my opinion. But in terms of volume, I would have to say that the LG G6 gets that much more louder. It has a little bit more oomph to it. But that being said, the placement on the E4, in my opinion, is the better placement. As I've demonstrated, it's very easy to muffle or block the bottom firing speaker on the G6, as opposed to you can't really muffle or block the front firing speaker on the E4. Okay, so it's a tie in clarity, but the G6 wins in overall volume, but the E4 wins in overall placement. So that's it. Now let's keep it moving. Up next, let's talk about the LTE bands and the bands supported in these guys. So let me just pull this up for you guys so y'all can see while I talk about it here. But in general, when we talk about band support, this is where I have to say the bands on the Moto E4 win. Whereas if you pick up a G6, there's going to be many variant, because you can see there's many different models for all the different carriers in the United States, and there's an international model, which is the bands that it shows here. So if you pick up the international model, you may or may not have band support for all the major carriers, but you will have band support for all the GSM carriers. Alright? Whoops. Fix that. Whereas with the E4 here, you pretty much have band support for all 4 major carriers in the United States and all GSM carriers abroad, on paper. Okay? On paper, it says that it's usable on all major carriers in the United States and all GSM carriers abroad. But again, as I've said in my full review, I have heard issues reported of where this guy has not been activated properly or cannot be activated on either Verizon or Sprint. So you take that with a grain of salt. It may or may not work on every carrier, but it will work on all GSM carriers. Okay? So in that aspect, when we talk about the band support, again, if you want to hear more about the band support on each of these devices and go further in depth on the bands, please check out my full reviews, which will be linked down below. But on that aspect, I would have to say the band and LTE coverage on both of these guys are a tie. You have a bunch of different models with your G6, which means if you want to go the carrier route, you can do that. And you will have more coverage with the international model. But again, the international models in most cases don't come with warranty, or they come with limited warranty or things of that nature. So that's good and bad. Whereas with the E4 here, you pretty much have all the band support for all the major carriers and all GSM carriers across the board. Alright? But again, I say take that with a grain of salt, because I've heard and seen reviews where this guy doesn't work on Sprint and it doesn't work on Verizon, or it doesn't work correctly. So at least in that aspect, they trade blows. This one is more easier to just pick up and use, plug and play, whereas this one is open on a bunch of carriers, but you do have different LTE bands for those carriers. So again, I have to say it's a tie in the band support aspect. Alright, and sorry about that notification, guys. You may or may not hear a few notifications in this video. Now, let's keep it moving. Up next, let's talk about the Bluetooth in these guys. Now, Bluetooth-wise, I'm just go ahead and tell you. Bluetooth-wise, I believe this guy has the Bluetooth 4.2 in it, and this guy has Bluetooth 4.1. But in terms of day-to-day usage with the Bluetooth, I haven't had any issues with either of these devices. I've connected up headphones, I've connected up speakers, I've connected up other phones, didn't have any issues with the Bluetooth on either of these devices. So if you use a lot of Bluetooth like myself, you shouldn't have any issues. And again, for more in-depth details to see exactly what I've connected or, exactly how everything works, please check out my full reviews on these devices, which will be linked down below in the video description. Now, next, let's talk about the GPSs on both of these devices. And again, you're going to hear more of the same. In terms of the GPS on both of these devices, I have to say using the GPS and turn by turn on either of these devices was a joy, and I didn't have any issues on either device. So let me just show you here. Took a screenshot. Okay. Let me find it. That's the okay. And G6. Here we go. So now I've run many a GPS test on both these devices, and I've had no issues with the GPS on either device. So as you can see right here, both of these devices have GPSs that work flawlessly. They didn't have any issues with turn-by-turn navigation or anything of that nature. It locked on quickly and it worked without issue. So if you're very GPS dependent like myself, you shouldn't have any issues regardless of which device you pick up. Because y'all already know your boy can't find his way out of a cardboard box. So it is what it is. So in terms of GPS, both the GPSs across the board are very good. So it's a tie there. Now next, let's talk about the receiver call quality and the speaker call quality on both of these devices. And again, this is where I have to say it's a tie across the board yet again. In terms of receiver calls, now y'all know I use both of these on T-Mobile, and in terms of receiver calls, I had no issues. The calls were very crisp, clear, and loud throughout. Didn't have any issues with drop calls or anything like that. Whenever I had coverage, it worked, and I didn't have any issues. In terms of speaker calls, they got loud and they were very crisp and clear, but at least in my opinion, I just wanted both of these to get a touch louder. Okay, maybe I'm getting old, maybe I'm going deaf, I don't know. But that being said, it's a tie across the board for call quality and speaker call quality. Alright, now next, this is where we talk about the cameras and the camera interfaces. But in the interest of speed, I'm just going to tell you guys which camera interface I prefer and talk about the photo and video qualities overall. Now, in terms of camera interfaces, I prefer the camera interface on the Moto E4 because it's easier, it's more simple to use, and you just have everything you need, okay? Whereas the camera interface on the G6 is just as good, but it packs in so many features, and diving into those features, you have to deal with a lot of submenus and things of that nature. So it kind of takes away from the overall usability, but where it takes away from the usability, it makes up for it with features. Now, some of those features you guys may consider a gimmick, and some of those features you guys may enjoy. And this is where I would say you have to use them to decide for yourself. But that being said, I think in terms of the camera interfaces, I'm going to have to give it to the Moto E4. It's just more easy to use. There's less of a learning curve. Now, in terms of cameras overall, I would have to say it's a tie. And I know you guys are going to say, but the G6 has dual rear firing 13 megapixel cameras. It has the wide angle lens. It could shoot 4K. It could do all this photo and video stuff. And I say yes, that's nice. But when you strip all that stuff away and you talk about the core experience, how good is it at taking photos? How good is it at taking videos? I'd have to say it's really good. But on the same token, I could say with the same lighting scenarios, taking photos side by side, you're really not going to notice a difference between the photos if you notice a difference at all. Keep in mind, this is in my opinion, and I am no camera expert by any shape or form. But using these cameras side by side, snapping similar pictures side by side, I found that it really is a toss-up, or it comes down to personal preference. Now, sometimes these photos may be spot on the same. One may be cooler or warmer than the other. It really comes down to personal preference. So stripping away all the gimmicks and what have you, I'm going to have to say it's a tie when it comes to the photo and video qualities on both of these cameras. Picking either camera up, either phone up, it should be a joy to use regardless of whichever phone you pick up. Now, let's keep it moving. Up next, this is where we would talk about the gaming on these devices. And pretty much, I could tell you right now, in the gaming department, the G6 takes the W. Now, I pretty much tested the same games on both of these devices because you guys know I'm a casual user, at least when it comes to games. And when I say a casual user or a casual gamer, I mean that means I play games like Subway Surfers, Fruit Ninja, Temple Run. The most graphically intensive game I may play will probably be Asphalt 8 or Asphalt Extreme, which the G6 ate up no problem. The E4 played it no problem, but there was a little bit hiccups and a little bit more drop frames. It was still playable, but that difference was noticeable, so I have to point that out. But playing casual games, you guys should have no issues playing casual games on either device. But now, again, this is where I say the G6 takes the win, is because it was a more smoother and seamless experience throughout. Alright? So, that's it. In the gaming department, I'd have to give it to the G6. Alright? Now, let's keep it moving. This is where I would talk about the benchmarks. Again, to hear more about the benchmarks and see the specific numbers, please check out my full reviews of either device, which will be linked down below. Now, in the interest of speed, I'm just going to talk about it. Okay? Now, yes, on paper, the G6 handily stomps the E4. But y'all already know what I'm going to say. Say it with me. Benchmarks, at the end of the day, are just raw numbers. What really matters is the overall combination of hardware and software, which equates to a fluid and smooth user experience, which both of these devices do in spades. But again, in terms of the actual raw synthetic benchmark numbers, the G6 wins hands down. It's not even a contest. But in terms of fluidity, I'd have to say it's almost a tie. Now, let's keep it moving. This is where I would talk about the battery life and the charge times on both devices. Now, let's start off with the G6 again. Now, in terms of battery life, pretty much, I'm just going to sum it up. In terms of battery life, whether you're a hardcore user or a light to moderate user, you should easily be able to get anywhere from about 6 to 9 hours. So that's screen on time. Usability wise, you're going to easily, depending on what you're doing now, you should easily be able to get about 6 to about 12 hours of usage. Keep in mind, if you're using it more heavily, then you're going to lean more towards the 6. If you're using it more lightly or moderately, then you're going to lean more towards the 12. But in terms of screen on time, with hardcore usage now, or heavy usage, in my results, I got anywhere from about 7 hours of screen on time to about 9 hours of screen on time, and that's with heavy usage. So I was playing games, I was listening to music, I was taking phone calls, I was using the GPS to navigate, snapping a lot of photos, taking a lot of videos, and at the end of the day, I landed out about a little bit over 7 hours, 7.5. Again, for the actual numbers and just not my summed up thoughts, please check out the full reviews of either of these devices. Alright, so talking about the battery life on the Moto E4 here, in terms again of usage, I would say that regardless of what you do, you're going to easily be able to get through the day with anywhere from about 6 to 10 hours of screen on time, or anywhere from about, I want to say 10 to 20 hours of usage time. Keep in mind, it depends on the type of user you are and the way that you use your device. Now, in my testing with heavy usage, I was easily able to get anywhere from about 6 hours of screen on time to just about 10 hours of screen on time. Again, to see the exact numbers, please check out my full reviews of the Moto E4, which will be linked down below in the video description. Alright, so that being said, when it comes to overall battery life, I'm going to have to give the slight edge to the Moto E4. Now, when we talk about the charging times, this is where, it's on paper, the G6 wins, but in actual usage, the G6 still wins. So, in terms of charge times, the G6 charges more like something akin to the ZTE Z-Max Pro. So depending on where you put it on the charger, it's going to take you anywhere from about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to get a full charge. Keep in mind, your numbers may vary. Keep in mind also, there are a bunch of factors that go into the charge time. Again, what percentage you put it on the charger at, the charging speeds that come off the charger. In particular with the G6, you have Qualcomm Quick Charge 3.0 baked into this guy, and you have a USB Type-C port. But also some draining factors may include the data you have syncing, whether or not you have Wi-Fi, GPS, or Bluetooth turned on, or your data syncing as well, your screen brightness, whether you have the screen on and you're using it while it charges, or whether you have the screen off but still keep stuff synced. And in that regard, again, I say the overall charge times, at least in my experience, were anywhere from an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. Okay? And also, you got to take into account the battery size differences. Again, the G6 has a 3300 milliamp hour battery, where the Moto E4 has a 2800 user removable, user replaceable battery, where the G6 has a non-removable 3300 milliamp hour battery. Okay? So that pretty much takes care of the charge times and the battery life on the G6 here. Alright, now talking about the charge times on the Moto E4, I would have to say that this guy is going to take about, on average, depending on where you plug it into the charger, that's going to take about an hour and 45 minutes to about 2.5 hours. Keep in mind, there's no quick charge baked into this guy. It's just your standard run-of-the-mill charging. Okay? So that's that. So you guys may be wondering who wins what. Now, in my opinion, the overall battery life has to go to the Moto E4. The overall charge times is going to the G6. Alright guys, so let's keep it moving. Up next, I want to talk to you guys about the final portion of this video. The price and my final thoughts. Now, jumping in, the Moto E4 here can be had right now today, depending on where you pick it up at. You can pick it up from Verizon for about $70, or you can pick it up from Amazon. If you're an Amazon Prime customer, you're paying $100 after tax. We're probably looking at like $110. And if you're an Amazon Prime customer, you get that free 2-day shipping. If you're not an Amazon Prime customer, you can also pick this guy up from Metro PCS for, I think it's about $50, $60. Keep in mind the Metro PCS version does not have the the fingerprint scanner. Alright? And if you're not an Amazon Prime customer and you want to pick this guy up outright, you can pick this guy up off of Amazon for $130 after tax being about $5 to $10. You're looking at like $140, $145. Alright, so now let's talk about the G6 here. Okay, let me turn the screen off real quick. Okay, pop that screen on the G6 here. So now let's talk about that young G6. So in terms of pricing on the G6, now you can pick this up from about every major carrier in the USA and some international sellers. You can use Swapper, you can use eBay, you can use Amazon, you can pick it up from T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, so on and so forth. And when you do that, if you pick it up online from places like Swapper or Amazon, then you're going to save a little bit of money. Right now, you can pick this guy up for about, if you use Swapper, you may be able to get it for about $360. If you use Amazon, then you're looking more like $400, $480. If you pick it up from a carrier, in particular, I picked this up from T-Mobile. This guy ran me about $500. If you pick it up from LG, then you're looking at paying anywhere from about $600 to $650. Alright? So that's pretty much the pricing and availability of both of these guys right there. Keep in mind, all links to where to purchase these guys will be down in the video description. Alright, so now, putting all the pricing and availability stuff aside, you guys are probably wondering which one I recommend. And again, I'm going to have to say this comes down to personal preference. Okay? If you're someone that wants a good overall device with some really good cameras, some really good battery life, some decent charge times, and something that's a little bit more hand-friendly, and you got your user removable battery, you got your stock Android software, you got your expandable storage, which you can use your microSD card as adaptable storage, then I would have to say, save yourself some money, pay either wherever you can find it, but at most it's going to run you about $145. Pay the $145, get the one off Amazon with no ads, and you're good to go. Keep in mind, you get a solid fingerprint sensor, everything just works, and there's no issues. And keep in mind, since it has a user removable battery, you can pick up an extra battery and be good to go. And sometimes you won't even have to worry about charge times. Alright, so if you want to save money and get an overall good device without issues, go ahead and pick up the Moto E4 for the $145 after tax. $130 without ads, throw on the taxes, probably $140, $145. Alright, now, if you're looking for more of a flagship price, flagship device at a not so flagship price, I would say pick up the LG G6. Let's run down the flagship specs real quick. Okay? 4 gigs of RAM. Check. 32 gigs of onboard storage. Check. microSD card expansion. Check. Big battery. 3300 milliamp hours. Check. Okay? Big beautiful display. 5.7 inches. Check. Quad HD. Check. Alright? Know what I'm saying? Quick charge 3.0. Check. Wireless charging. Check. Waterproofing. Check. 4K video recording. Check. Slow motion video recording. Check. Alright? Price tag $360 to $650. Alright? So if you're looking for a flagship and you don't want to break the bank, I can easily say pick up the LG G6. Now, there are some caveats, however. If y'all have checked out my previous G6 videos, I feel like the quality control on LG devices is at least not up to snuff, in my opinion. Y'all, if y'all check out those videos, you know that I had some issues with my first G6 where the fingerprint sensor just stopped working. Alright, didn't drop it, didn't get it submerged in water, any of that stuff, even though it has the IP68 rating, which means it's waterproof up to 10 meters or 3 feet for 30 minutes. Didn't take this guy anywhere close to water. Never dropped it. Sorry about that notification, guys. Still, the fingerprint sensor just decided to stop working one day. This is actually my second G6 because I did have warranty with T-Mobile as well as warranty with LG. So I took it back to the store. I showed them the problem. They determined that it was by no fault of my own. I gave them the defective device, I guess you can call it, and they ordered a new one for me. And I paid a small fee, and now we got a new G6 in-house. So, just had to point that out so you guys know you may or may not run into that issue. And I did check it out online. A few G6 owners did run into that issue where the fingerprint sensor stopped working unexplainably. So y'all keep on the lookout if you're looking at picking up a G6. But again, if you're looking for a flagship device at a not so flagship price, I can easily recommend picking up the LG G6. Again, if you want an all-around good device and you want to save a ton of money, I can easily recommend the Moto E4. At the end of the day, it just comes down to your personal preference and what you want. Alright guys, so that has been my versus/comparison video between the Moto E4 and the LG G6. Guys, please don't forget links to where to purchase both of these guys, as well as cases, micro SD cards, so on and so forth, will be down in the video description, along with video samples and photo samples, so on and so forth. If you want quicker access to the photo samples, please be sure to follow me on Google+. That is where I post all of the photo samples from any device that I'm reviewing at the time. If y'all want to check out the video samples on either of these devices, please check out my video samples playlist available on YouTube right now. Anyways guys, if y'all enjoyed this video, please help your boy out and give it a thumbs up. That really does help me out. You don't know how much. If you want to see more raw, uncut content like this, please hit the subscribe button down below and check off the little notification bell icon right next to it so you get notified when I post new videos. And as always, if y'all know anyone out there looking for some high quality, affordable devices at some really great prices, please share with them my channel, because I'm doing this for everyone because we all deserve the best. I hope everyone has a great day, and I will catch you guys in my next video. It's time for the E4 to go up against the Moto X Pure Edition. Here we go. Alright guys, I will catch you guys in my next video. I hope everyone has a great day. Peace.